So, welcome everyone to our session dedicated to Subscribe to Open, a new path to open access. I'm Pablo Dominguez. I'm the Director of Communications at De Gruyter, and I am delighted to be hosting this session on Subscribe to Open. I see we have a lot of participants already, which is great. I think a couple of more people are joining the panel right now. But I'd say we jump right in and get started with the session. So today's topic is Subscribe to Open. And for those of you who are not yet familiar with the model, I'm going to briefly explain what this alternative transformation path to open access is all about. So Subscribe to Open basically is a model that enables the complete and immediate open access transformation of journals. But instead of requiring subscription fees from authors, as is the case in APC-based models, this model uses the existing subscription base of a given journal. So basically, if the subscribers of a journal agree to continue subscribing, it is switched to open access. So the model was initially developed by the US publisher Annual Reviews, and it has been adopted by several publishers worldwide. It's still relatively new, and 4 of these publishers that are working with the model right now are represented on our panel today. Also, all of the publishers that are on the panel are part of the Subscribe to Open community of practice, which has recently been launched to bring together librarians, publishers, and content providers to improve the understanding of this new model and its take-up in the publishing industry. So how is this session going to be organized? We have only an hour, so we have a lot of ground to cover. We basically are going to have 3 parts to the session. We'll have a short introduction, and all the panelists are going to have the opportunity to present their motivations for choosing the S2O model, which is the first step. Then we'll have about a 30-minute discussion among us in the panel, where I'll be asking some questions to our panelists, and then we'll have about 15 minutes where we'll open up to the audience, and you can ask questions. So before we start, just some basic housekeeping stuff. One, the session is being recorded, and it will be made available afterwards on our YouTube channel. 2, please feel free to ask questions, and if you have any questions during the discussion, please use the chat function and pose your questions there. After the panel discussion, we'll try to answer all of those. I'll forward those questions to the panelists, and if there are any questions that we can't answer, we'll try to answer them after the panel discussion. All right, so let me introduce our panelists. So first we have Irene van Rossum. Irene has nearly 20 years of experience in scholarly publishing. She's worked at Brill, and since March, she's working for Amsterdam University Press. She's a commissioning editor, and she manages the growing journal program for AUP, as well as several book series in history and social and political sciences. Then we have Charlotte van Rooyen, who is the Director of Marketing and Communications at EDP Sciences. Charlotte has been with EDP for about 7 years. And before that, she was Head of Journals Marketing at Oxford University Press. Charlotte has been involved in the open access arena since 2004, and in the 16 years since then, she has worked on the communications around many OA projects, the latest of which is the move to Subscribe to Open for EDP's portfolio of math journals. Then we have André Gaul. Andre Gaalin studied mathematics and computer science and finished his PhD in applied mathematics at Technische Universität Berlin. He is also the co-founder and CEO of the startup Paper Hive that facilitates communication and collaboration in research articles and books. And in 2019, he took over as the CEO of EMS Press, the publishing house of the European Mathematical Society. And last but not least, we have Christina Lembrecht. Christina has worked as a project manager and acquisitions editor in De Gruyter's Humanities Department for more than 8 years. Since 2019, she has been increasingly concerned with De Gruyter's open access strategy, especially for the humanities and social sciences portfolio. And she currently manages De Gruyter's Subscribe to Open pilot project. So we have 4 people very much involved in Subscribe to Open. And my first question to all of you basically is, you're all adopting this new approach, the Subscribe to Open transformation approach. So how did you arrive at this decision, and what were your motivations that led you to choose Subscribe to Open? And maybe Andre Gaalin would like to start off.
Yes, thank you very much. So first of all, EMS Press is the publishing house of the European Mathematical Society, which basically is an umbrella society of all the European mathematical societies. So we have lots of member societies that we represent, and as such, we are directly serving the researchers in our fields. We had looked at the options for open access publishing, and last year we did a survey of all business models that we could implement. The dominant business model of APCs, where the researcher pays a fee to publish a document, was not very attractive to us, and is not very attractive to mathematicians in general, or to researchers in general, because researchers are often denied their right to publish. If you cannot afford the publication, then you cannot publish, and this may even terminate your career at some point. Also, the quality may be sacrificed in order to increase profits. That's something that happens at commercial publishers mostly, but there is definitely this danger, both in the editorial and the production part. And it's pretty much an intransparent pricing model that may even lead to increased costs. So we thought about alternatives that are more sustainable. So sustainability is the key issue for the European Mathematical Society here. We do not think that APCs are sustainable at all because of the points I mentioned, but there are others. So we looked at several options. Subscribe to Open is basically the easiest option. So essentially, everything continues as it was before. Libraries continue to subscribe to the journals, and just when there is a certain threshold reached, a journal is flipped open access for the next year. That's how we are implementing it for 10 of our 20 journals, starting right now. So the first journals will hopefully be open access in January 2021. So in a couple of months, we'll know which journal those are. But yeah, sustainability for us was the key issue, and something that really serves the research community, because with the society, we're very close to the research community, and that's the most important bit for us.
Thank you, Andre. Charlotte, would you like to go next? What made you choose this model? What were your motivations?
Thank you. Yes, actually, Andre has sort of set the scene quite nicely for me, because ours is also a motivation driven by the mathematics community. EDP Sciences, a researcher-led scientific publisher, century of history dedicated to services for authors and readers. But as such, we have a real, our mission is really to be supportive and in the advancement of scholarship and the dissemination of research, but really the support of our authors and researchers comes at the forefront of what we do. We've worked on a number of OA projects. We launched our own open access platform in 2014. We've tried different pricing models, like a Liberty APC model where you can pay anything you like, including nothing. Launch journals, flip journals, etc. But we've been talking with we have a portfolio of mathematics journals, and we're talking with them. They are really supportive of OA, but hate APCs. And this is where we'd got to. So, you know, they wouldn't even go a hybrid route. And we have a transformative agreement with the national transformative agreement with France. They're not even partaking in that. So it was really trying to find something that suited them, but they're so supportive of working with us. So actually quite quickly we came to the thought that we should do a pilot at least with S2O with one of our mathematics journals, which we did last year. And to be brutally honest, we took the pilot on with the least financial risk we could take. So it was a journal that it was not a very high revenue journal. So we wanted to sort of just put our toes in the water to see how it would go. And that went very well. So we have now made the decision to flip the rest of the maths journals working with this society. So their 5 journals are now going to be moving to the S2O model. We've got a really good community with them. As I say, they hate the open access, but they're very united with us. So I think a big key for us is that they've been very open to communicating with their communities and reaching out to all the people that matter in order to make sure that people are aware of it. So yes, that's sort of, I guess, really our motivations.
Thank you. Irina, how about Amsterdam University Press?
Okay, so Amsterdam University Press is a relatively small press. We currently publish 22 journals. Actually, next year there will be 34. We're taking over a bunch of history journals from another press. Most of our journals are in Dutch. Some of them are international and have English content, but most of them are in Dutch. And the reason why we were looking at implementing Subscribe to Open is that like EMS and EDP sciences, in our market, APCs simply do not work. Even though our APCs were very reasonable, for humanities, it's very difficult to raise the money. But for Dutch articles in humanities, it's impossible. I think in the years that we've had APCs, maybe 2 were ever invoiced. So that was not an option. So we had about 10 journals already in open access sponsored by various institutions. So big sponsors that would carry the load of the journals. But for other journals, those funds aren't available. And so we looked at what would be the most sustainable options, because there is a mandate from the Dutch Research Council and Royal Academy that all scholars working at institutions in the Netherlands should publish their work in open access. So we have to move with that, and we think that the Subscribe to Open is really the best way to do it. So that, as you say, it's a lot of smaller subscriptions carry a big load, and the field is for us, because it's mostly Dutch universities that are subscribing, and a lot of Dutch individuals subscribing to the print, which we hope they will keep. And we didn't wait. We did do some consultation, but then we said we'll just go for it with 5 journals, and we flipped them in May. So it's going to be exciting with this renewal period we're doing. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, Thank you, Irene. Christina, do you wanna tell us a bit about De Gruyter's motivations?
Yeah, I mean, I think the three in the panel have already erased some of the motivations that we also have, but I guess I will start with a little bit of background. So De Gruyter is a universal publishing house, so we have quite a broad publishing list, which some colleagues tend to say ranges from art history to zoology. So also our journal list is quite diverse or quite complete, I would say. We have around 150 STM journals and approximately 240 journals in humanities and social sciences. And in the STM sector, we have been quite successful in integrating and including open access into our existing journal portfolio. By converting subscription journals into APC-based open access journals. So about half of our STM portfolio is already operating as pure open access journals. And but the picture totally changes when you look into humanities and social sciences areas. Here we only really have a couple of open access journals. And as Irene said, as Andre said, we don't really see in the HSS scholarly community acceptance for the APC model. So we try to launch APC-based journals also in the humanities and social sciences, and I think it's quite fair to say that they haven't been really a success. But there's also something very important in the HSS publishing cultures where it doesn't really fit with the APC approach. So in humanities and social science journals, we publish a wide range of article types beyond the research article, which is normally funded in the APC world. So we have book reviews there, we have reviews, we have interviews, we have bibliographies, etc. So content diversity is very, very important. It's a very characteristic feature for humanities and social science journals, and they are not funded in an APC model. So for us, APC and humanities and social sciences just doesn't seem to be a very good fit. And so we started around 1.5 to 2 years ago, also against the background of the general political situation in Europe, to investigate about alternative transformation models and approaches for our humanities and social science portfolio. And it happened that at the same time, we were approached by the editors of one of our journals, Bibliothek Forschung und Praxis, to transform their title to full gold open access without any author-related fees. So this is our pilot journal. So we are doing the journal with just with one, the pilot was just one journal. But I think the journal is in a way a very good one because with the editors, we have they are like holding leading position in academic libraries. So we have excellent advisors for the implementation process. And in addition, while Bibliothek Forschung und Praxis is mainly situated in the German-speaking countries, it also has a considerable international distribution, with 25% of the subscribers being located outside of the German language market. So with these pilot journals, we can test the acceptance of the model international, but also, and that's very important for us, in the German market, because most of our HSS journals, for them, the German market is still very key. So to make a long story a bit shorter, I mean, I think we are embarking into Subscribe to Open to offer a sustainable open access model that nurtures the long-standing HSS publishing culture that we have at De Gruyter.
Thank you, Christina. So yeah, let's jump right into the discussion. I mean, I think I've heard something I hear from all of you is that the APC model doesn't really work for the communities that that you're trying to serve. And you've already mentioned some of the benefits of the S2O model, but I'd like to ask again, what do you think are the biggest advantages of Subscribe to Open, you know, as compared to APC models, and especially publish and read, which is something that is quite successful or quite common in other communities. So what are the biggest advantages for you that made you choose subscribe to open? Andre, do you want to see you raising your hand?
Yeah, so I think for us really the most compelling benefit is that with subscribe to open, you do not exclude anyone. So with APCs, as soon as you are doing APCs, independent of how you implement it with a transformative deal or something else, you will exclude someone. Transformative arrangements like deal, for example, are also only covering a certain country. You will exclude anyone who's outside that country if they don't have a transformative agreement either or are not funded. And there will always be people who are excluded from by an APC model. So this, for us, this inclusive approach is very important. And this is the researcher side, that researchers are not excluded, but also for the libraries, it's a better model, we think, really, because they are not really cut out of the process as with APC models, where everything is handled either directly by the researcher or by a funding agency or something, which I think is also crucial for the quality of journals. Libraries also have a purpose of selecting or maintaining the quality of the portfolio. If you don't subscribe to a journal, then probably it's because it's not relevant. And this is something that is not there at all with APC-based models. So we really think that the inclusion of libraries in this process is important. So that's the other bit. And for us and the libraries, it's of course good to have a smooth transitioning where you don't completely change the people you're working with, like you would be doing with APCs, where you have to charge the researchers directly and you have to build an entire system just for administration. So that's it from me. And Charlotte was also
yeah, I think I've pretty much, I think we're just echoing each other as we go. Yeah, mine is very much as well. I think it's taking down so the administrative role of the librarian, it really eases that, because we're just fitting into the same workflows that have been going for a long time. Doubling down on curation being the central role of a librarian, which I think has sort of perhaps been lost a little bit with big deals and this kind of thing. So libraries of any size and budget can really contribute to OA by subscribing to single journals if they want, or to larger collections. So yeah, so for me that would really be where I see the advantages.
Christina, do you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting what Andre and Charlotte are saying about the curation part and about these two sides of quality control, let's say. I mean, in the subscription world, we do have these two quality things. We cannot run a journal without having authors who want to publish in it, but we also in the long run cannot run a journal if we don't have subscribers, so readers to the journal. But this kind of double mechanism is kind of is lost in an APC word, and I think that's very important. Here you really have again two markets, the author market and the librarians market, and it needs to work in both. So you have a double quality control, so to say. And I also would I really like to think about that's a very inclusive model. So what Andre and Charlotte already said about that, it's really fair and equal approach, as all authors can publish in it regardless of their institutional affiliation and the financial backing of this of the institution. But it's also inclusive, and I'm coming back to what I just said. It supports all content and formats, so it's inclusive in that way as well. And it's all inclusive, and that's my personal opinion, as I'm very print oriented still. I shouldn't say that in this, but I know a lot of people disagree, but I mean, subscribe to open is also very inclusive, as it's kind of media neutral. You can also subscribe via print and by this support the open access transformation. So I think this is also an argument which you can make.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, Irina, sorry. Do you want to add something on that?
Yes, I thought I could chime in on that. I'm unmuted. Yes. That in our market with the Dutch language journals and mostly Dutch subscribers, I think this is a very good deal also for all stakeholders. Where we calculated that 48% of our authors are at the universities that and have a mandate. And so if they would all be paying APCs, that would be much, much more expensive for the universities or their funders than simply keeping the relatively cheap subscriptions. And I agree that with the heavy base we have on print subscribers, that is a good deal.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks all. We've heard a lot of advantages about the model. Sounds almost too good to be true. So let's talk a bit about the difficulties and the challenges, because obviously now we're all in this implementation phase. So what are some of the difficulties or challenges you have been encountering, and what are difficulties that you envisage going ahead? Charlotte, I think you were the first to raise your hand this time.
Yeah, so I've got two problems to perhaps overcome with the model. And the first is really how to grow a journal in this situation. So you're really relying on your current subscriber base. So, you know, for a big publisher or big journals with a big subscriber base, that's, you know, you're okay. But when you have a smaller journal where you're trying to launch journals and we have no subscription base, where can you go with that? So that was the first one. And the second one just went flying out of my head as I said that. Yeah, so that I think, yeah, growing a journal, I think is the biggest one for us. I'll come back to the second one, I'm sure, when somebody else is speaking.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I'm sure the others have thought about it as well, right? Okay, who wants to go next? I think everyone is raising their hand. Christina, do you want to?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges when it comes to scholars and authors is that there is no guarantee that authors publish, that the articles will definitely be published in open access, especially when from the change of the year to year, because we have this renewal process. So every year we need to prove that the subscribe to open model works. And well, this problem is kind of inherent to the model, and I guess the only solution I can see is that we prove that the subscribe to open model works in a row of years, so that we have the evidence to the author that it's very, very likely to publish in open access. And there might also be some issues with funder compliancy, but I think Andre, I mean, we with our library journal, we don't really have a problem with funder compliancy at the moment, but I think Andre has worked on a quite smart solution here.
Yeah, maybe I can just add to that. So for the funder compliance, we just say that any articles can be published in the green route, so can be deposited somewhere. So that is fine with any funder. So we tackled this problem. We also had the two problems that you mentioned before, Christina and Charlotte. So the growth or the launching of new journals is tricky. I don't have a definite answer to that. Like kickstarting a subscribe to open journal is hard. But I think if we can establish it as a common model, then it should be like libraries should understand or will understand that this is a sustainable model that works and will also subscribe to a new journal, hopefully. That's but that's still something that we need to work on, and that's maybe also a question for everyone who's attending. If you're a librarian, what would you do? Would you subscribe to a new subscribe to open journal that's just started? Interesting question. And the other bit, that there is no open access guarantee. This is something that we faced both in the direction of libraries and also in the direction of editors who really want their journals to be open access. And we cannot give them a guarantee. But I think this is where it's just about doing good business. Like, we as publishers also have to do or have to build up a reputation for the journals now in a subscription, pure subscription mode. So why would that change when we're going to subscribe to open? We have to build up a reputation of being an open access publisher with subscribe to open. I think that's the solution for this. And so, yeah, I fully agree with what Christina said on that. That's a thing that will probably take a year or two.
Okay, yeah, so lots of challenges ahead as well. So we kind of touched on this already, I guess, but one thing that is often mentioned with regards to S2O is the anticipation of the danger of the free rider problem. You know, where free rider means, aren't people going to use the content but not without contributing back, basically. So I wanted to ask what do you think about this danger or about this problem? Is that really an issue? Have you thought about that? Are there ways you would try to cope with that? Charlotte, yeah.
I think from our perspective I think communication is going to be the key. It's really making the community really understand what this model is about. It's about community working together, really. I have no doubt this situation might arise, but it's also going to rely on infrastructures. So understanding who is looking at your content, who is reading your content, who's publishing in your content, and the ability to be able to go to institutions to say, you are using this content or you are writing in this content. So I think it's kind of quite multi-tiered about it, but I think the biggest thing we have to do is to really, like what we're doing here today, is really like communicating what this model really is, and trying to there's a lot of myths and a lot of good news, bad news on it, and just to try and get as much information out there so people are as informed as possible. So that's sort of from my perspective, or our perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, communications is key in this model. I agree. So Irene, did you want to add something? You also kind of raised your hand, right?
Yes, I think, well, again, because AUP is working in the Dutch market, we know who our subscribers are most of the time. It's a small field. And as I said, 48% of the authors are at these institutions. And I think it's also a question of mobilizing your authors and your editorial boards and foster this sense of community, that we're all doing this together. That is going to be key. And communication, of course, is the basis for all of that. And that's going to be, I think, the biggest challenge, but not impossible.
Yeah. Andre, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I completely agree with Charlotte that communication is crucial now. So we see this everywhere. Also, the dominant thought currently is apparently still that open access equals APCs. This is something that I encounter everywhere. And it's slowly starting to change now, because subscribe to open is picking up some speed. But this is something that we have to challenge, that open access is not APCs. And really it's about a community working together for the benefit of everyone, actually. But there's also something built into the model that prevents this, right? So if people are not subscribing to the journal anymore, then it will go behind a paywall again. There's always this danger. Of course, we don't want this to happen, but maybe in the first years, there might be some back and forth that it will go back behind the paywall because of that problem. This will be interesting to see. I don't hope that it will happen, and the communication bit here is key, that libraries understand that this is not a suitable option to just rely on the others to pay the share. So there are also tweaks you can do to the model, like give subscribers other benefits, like we do, for example, give access to the entire archive, which is not otherwise completely open yet. So this will happen over the next years, where we establish the model. So giving incentives also on the business side to keep subscribing, or you give discounts. So there are several ways of keeping libraries to subscribing, and so I think there's communication and these bits that are baked into or can be baked into the specifics of the model.
Christina. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm on mute, sorry.
Oh, now you're on mute again. Sorry, Christina. You have to. Now.
Now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I made it. Yeah, so I mean, I think there was also already a question in the chat about this mechanism and the paywall, or the reactivation of the paywall, and whether we give other incentives to the subscribers. And I mean, Andre mentioned the backlist. I mean, Subscribe to Open worked initially, at least, with a discount. We have decided not to give the discount, basically because operationally and system-wise it was not really feasible to introduce this, but we decided to introduce a price stability for the first 2 years if the subscribers keep subscribing, so to say.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd be interested to. Oh, sorry, Andre. You wanted to add something?
Yeah. So we are talking a lot about the threat that people would cancel subscriptions, but I also see in the chat that there's a question about people might decide to subscribe because it's subscribe to Open, and we actually see this, that libraries really love the model and want to contribute to it. So we cannot currently say whether we have more subscriptions than in the year before, because the renewal season is still ongoing. But it looks good so far, and we definitely see some interest also from libraries to actively support the model, which sometimes goes even to a stage where they would like to know the current status of where we are, like how much of the thresholds do we have now, and that's something that we cannot disclose because this would really allow the gaming bit here. So we're not disclosing this, but we would love to be able to disclose it, but that's just part of the model that we cannot do that. Just want to say that there's also the opposite effect, that libraries really like the model and maybe are more inclined to support it also financially. Yeah, no, that's perfect, because actually I meant to ask about Librarians Reactions, and I'd be really interested to hear from the others on the panel, like how are librarians reacting, how's the model being received, and what are there any reservations or what have been the reactions from librarians? Charlotte, yeah.
A small selection, I guess, but we're just having unanimously positive response from it, to the point where, in fact, funnily enough, the Subscribe to Open community, librarians are joining this group to talk really openly with publishers, and it's a really open group, really positive. We have a particular librarian who works with us, who is, we've spent an hour on the phone just chatting about the model and about it just feels like there's some real good communication between, you know, the publisher and the librarian, whereas that isn't always so easy, but it just feels that there's a very open conversation being had about it. And my experience certainly has been very positive.
Okay. That sounds good. Any other librarian reactions, reservations, or Gaalin? Yes.
Well, only a few. When we launched it, we sent out a press release, and a first reaction was, and I think this is just a question of not, we're assuming it's really clear what this model is that we had a few requests for refunds for what had already been paid, and that made us click that we should explain this more clearly about the benefits, etc. And the follow-up reaction was extremely positive. And we've already also had a librarian asking, if we subscribe, are we also part of the S2 open model then? So I think, yes, if handled well, it could be a success, and hopefully
Okay.
will remain that, yes.
What about one final question, because we're sort of one final question from me before we open to the audience. What about the research communities? I mean, we've already touched a bit that as well, but what are the reactions from researchers? And would you say that these are very tied to certain disciplines? I mean, this also goes to the question, like, why did you choose the journals that you did? Does it have to do something with the communities of the disciplines that are tied to those journals? Andre, do you want to?
Yeah, so I can really say our research community loves it. So our editors love it, because they will keep getting submissions from everywhere, independent of the income situation or research funding or anything. So they want to get the good quality contributions from everywhere, not only from countries where people can afford to pay in the APC. So they really love it. They obviously are all in favor of open access. That's a long-standing tradition in mathematics, actually, where people have been depositing preprints on the archive for a very long time. So there's a long history of open access in mathematics, and the research community now is, I think, very happy about a new model that actually works.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So I'd say we have about 15 minutes left, and we have a lot of questions already in the chat. By the way, thanks so much for attending, everyone, and for asking all these questions. And I hope we'll have enough time to answer all of them or part of them. I think partly we already talked about some of the answers, actually. I'm just gonna pick out one to start with. Again, the question: are any of your presses offering subscribers an additional incentive for continuing to support the journal? Is there like a discount or something, or is it just should the fact that the journal goes open access be enough of an incentive to continue subscribing in your eyes? Yes, Anna, do you want to continue right away?
Yeah, so just very quickly, so I already mentioned that we give people the access to the archive. So we also do offer a possibility to subscribe for 3 years, so which is to basically alleviate any cancellation effects in the coming years, and then we give libraries a discount if they subscribe for longer term.
Charlotte, I think you wanted to add something, right?
Yes, I think the difficulty has come obviously with COVID and the economic situation affecting everybody. We have decided we are not in a position to offer discounts, but again, like Andre, I think we'll talk about maybe longer term subscriptions where you can tie into more than 1 year for a fixed price, that kind of thing. There was some discussion. In fact, one of our editors or publication boards got really excited about thinking about sort of like freemium models where you would offer something extra, you know, I don't know, like HTMLs or PDF formats or whatever. So there's been a little bit of discussion around what else could one offer, but that none of that is decided yet. So I'll be interested to see. Again, it's still so at the beginning of this whole process, and I think COVID obviously came at not a great time. Well, never would have come at a good time, obviously. But, to launch a new model at this time, when obviously the economic situation is folding in a little bit, made actually offering discounts a difficult thing. But I think there are other imaginative ways we can look at this, as you say, maybe offering archives, offering fixed term subscriptions, that kind of thing.
Okay, so another question from the chat. Once the subscribe threshold has been met for a specific year, does that year stay open regardless of meeting the threshold in future years? I see a lot of nodding. That seems to be a simple answer.
Stay open, yes.
Yes,
So the answer
I
is
think
yes.
that's very easy to say. Yeah.
Also, you cannot, once you apply an open license like CC BY, you cannot take that back. So that's a clear yes.
Yeah, and I think this was also a question in the chat, right? That there was a question about the licensing, and yes, in our case, it's CC BY, I guess in all others as well, I assume.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so another question from the chat. I'm curious how this model is going to affect the subscription cost for institutions or libraries. If a publisher will lose subscribers, will the cost increase for the remaining subscribers? Yes, Andre.
So, yeah, just no, that's the quick answer. The cost will not increase for the others because that's just not how subscriptions work. One of the benefits also for the libraries is that the library can plan in advance. They know exactly what they will pay, unlike APCs where it depends on how much is published. So you have complete control over your costs, and so there will not be an increase of the subscription price. It's all known in advance.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I think that the onus is actually on the publisher to make sure that they have the infrastructure in place to be able to look and see where the usage and the authors are coming from, so that, you know, we can make sure that people who should be subscribing are subscribing, if you like.
Yeah, so it's about us to build this community, right? I mean, that's our job, has been our job in the past, and it keeps being our job.
Okay. So here's another one. When you flip a journal, does this mean all articles are published OA from that point on for the duration of the agreement? And do you plan to make past articles retrospectively OA? Will the articles published OA remain OA even if S2O cannot be renewed the following year? So it's 3 questions actually, really about the functioning of the model. Who wants to? Andre, do you wanna?
Yeah, so maybe I can answer one and then someone else can answer it. The one question is what happens to past articles, like the archive. That's how we call it. So we actually do plan to also make the archives open access. We have currently a moving wall where everything is accessible. That doesn't mean with proper CC BY licenses yet, but it's accessible. And we plan to completely remove that wall to make it 0 years, so that everything is accessible. As I said before, we kind of keep this archive for now, and we'll make it open access successively in order to keep the subscribers subscribing in the beginning, where we need to establish the new model.
Yes, Irene.
For our journals, most of them already have delayed open access anyway, but with the journals we flipped, everything went open, also the last 2 years. And yes, as we mentioned earlier, once it has a CC BY license, you can't revoke that. So anything that's open at some point will remain open.
Yeah, we also have a moving wall in this pilot journal. So basically, if this pilot is successful, the archive, I mean, it's already open actually, because we have a moving wall of 1 year here.
Yeah.
Yeah, in agreement with the others.
Very good. But I think these are great questions, because as we said in the beginning, you know, it's a very simple model if you sort of boil it down to one sentence or two, but the devil's always in the details. And I think that comes across from the questions as well. So here's another one. Once the threshold has been met, do you continue to accept subscription payments?
Yes, we do. That's also something that we will use to, yeah, basically fund journals that maybe don't receive as many subscriptions. So we, as a publisher, operate as a whole and do not look at the individual journals. Yeah, completely separated from each other. So definitely the subscriptions will be collected even beyond that point. So we do not say that let's stop here, but we will make that or use that funds to make the portfolio sustainable further, and also to invest in new projects, new journals. And that's how subscriptions always worked for publishers, and that's something we will keep.
Christina, you...
Sorry. So it's a cross-financing here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's normal in the subscription portfolio, as you say. I mean, one are better performing than others, and you cross-finance them.
Irene, yes.
Well, and as a publisher, we always have to move forward as well. You know, we have to keep up with all the developments in the field. There's going to be new requirements for publications, and any money that comes in will be well spent. Also on keeping the journal up to speed, I think.
And I would like to add, I think this is something that's really, I don't know, the smaller publisher really gets a voice here now. Whereas before, I think this is a really, again, from a community point of view, you know, our voice has not been heard. We're not being subsumed, I hope, by the big ones again. So I think this is, you know, yeah, yes, we will obviously continue to take the subscription money, but as the others have said, certainly from our perspective, that'll be going back into publishing projects, not for shareholders.
Yeah, there was also one question in the chat, just last one, I think, how publishers might raise funding for expanding the portfolio. So this is really how this works usually. And just one clarification in the chat, there was a question whether the threshold is portfolio wide or journal by journal. That was a bit confusing what I said, I think. So for us, the subscribe to open thresholds are journal by journal thresholds. But the overall, there is still some cross funding behind the scenes going on. So production costs might be covered from other funds in some cases. But that's internal, totally internal to the publisher, really. And we are designing it in a way such that the library and nobody else has to deal with these issues.
Yeah, there's also a question about the grace period. So at what point in the subscription year do you decide whether to flip or not? A question about the time frame. How does that work?
1st of January, that's where we decide.
Okay.
Yeah, we also in January. I mean, the renewal process is on until December, mid-December, and then it's beginning of January where we have a result.
Yeah. So I wonder if we should. So we only have like 4 minutes left, and a couple of questions. So the first one, I think we kind of touched on it already, but I think it's still relevant or interesting because it's from the author perspective, basically. You know, we talked about how as Subscribe to Open carries the threat that a volume may go beyond a paywall if there aren't enough subscribers, of course. And now, how does this fit with mandates to publish in open access journals? Like, if considering publication timelines, an author cannot be sure that a journal that is OA when they submit will still be OA when the paper is published. What would you tell those authors to reassure them, maybe, or is that something you've thought about? I think it's a kind of a valid point. And a difficult one also. Andre, see you raising your hand.
I'm really sorry. I seem to be always the first one, so I try to keep it short. So for mathematics, it's as I said, really common to publish preprints on preprint servers. So that's something that we will still allow to the authors to do. So they are always able to publish something OA anyway.
Irena, do you want to add something?
Assuming that the green open access is an acceptable model for the funders and the mandates, then that's always an option as well.
I think that goes for HSS as well. I mean, we still have the green option to comply with funder mandates.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. I think so. I'm just looking through the questions. We have time for a final one. Or maybe we can, sorry, did we say something about so we're going to try to answer the questions after the chat that we haven't been able to answer during the conversation, right?
Yeah, we can do that offline because as all of you registered, we can reach out to you if in case we missed any of your questions in the chat. Okay,
so we have because I think there's a couple and we're running out of time. So I don't know, do you guys have any final words? From my side, I would just like to thank everyone. I mean, thanks to the panel, of course, for your insights, and thanks to everyone participating for the questions and for the interest in this topic. I think it's been a really interesting discussion. Yeah, thank you very much as well for moderating, and thank you for attending.
The final thing you might say is that it's still a really new model.
Yeah.
And we're all still trying to work it out. So it's really great to have these kind of forums to be able to discuss, have the questions, because there's still things that we haven't thought of, or things that we, even reading the chat, I'm going, just thinking about things. So yeah, it's great to have this kind of communication. It seems to be a kind of a real community model. So yeah, great. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and so I don't have I have basically something to ask the audience, because I think what we said in the beginning is that we need more communication around this. So I think it would be great if everyone could be raising awareness more about this model, and to stop people from thinking that APCs is the only way to achieve open access. I think that's a crucial bit here, and so I hope that all the participants understand that Subscribe to Open is a viable alternative to that.
I think those are very nice last words. Thank you, Andre, for that. And I think Christina, I think you wanted to, or one thing we said we wanted to do at the end is point towards the community of practice, right? So there's a link down here, but also if you Google it, the S2O community of practice, that's a good sort of stop to find more information. There's some FAQs on that page, and yeah, if you'd like to get in touch, also here are the contacts of everyone.
Everyone is invited to ask me questions. Also reach out to me via email if you're interested in what we're doing. I'm happy to answer.
All right.
I guess it's same for us.
Yes.
Same for everybody.
Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. See you soon.